All right, well, nearly a year after toxic soil forced Melbourne, the $6.7 billion Westgate Tunnel project to a standstill, taxpayers will be slugged another huge bill to remove it. $750 million, in fact, $750 million. And this will take the whole project up to around $7.5 billion at least. Now, for reasons that no one can explain, it's not the tunnel's builder that's wearing this cost to remove this contaminated soil, but Victorian taxpayers. Not only that, but there's a real fight about where the toxic material will be dumped, right up against homes and families. Victorian Liberal MP and Leader of the Opposition in the Upper House, Legislative Council, we just talked about that a minute ago, Mr David Davis, joins me now from Melbourne. I'll get to that legislation in just a moment that we just talked about there with Stuart Wood. But I can't believe this. $750 million, B for billion, paid for by the taxpayers. It's already a project that's blowing out in terms of time and cost. What's going to happen with this soil and why are taxpayers footing the bill? David Davis.
Well, this project, Peter, has been comprehensively botched by Labor. Their Infrastructure Minister, Jacinta Allen, has completely mucked this up. Despite the Labor going to an election with a very small sideshow project, they've got this $6.7 billion project. It's now blown out massively. It's now about a year behind in time. And the reality is that the project is a project where they didn't scope the disposal of this toxic soil, this PFAS contaminated soil. You know, who would have thought that Melbourne's old industrial west might have had some contaminated soil? In fact, the EES, the Environmental Effects Statement, warned about this, but Labor did nothing. Now they're embroiled in a legal fiasco. The tunnel builders, the two lots of them, and Transurban are at war, and the government's joined with that. So you've got a three-way fight. It's a bit like a circular firing squad where they're at each other. The government, unfortunately, has rolled first, and it's going to pay a huge amount of money to help with the disposal of the soil. Now, they should have dealt with this at the start. They should have done the proper scoping and the proper steps so that a safe site could be found, a secure site for this contaminated soil. Instead, now they propose, with special laws, cutting environmental processes to dump this in Bulla and in Bacchus Marsh. So local communities genuinely unhappy, of course, and with legitimate complaints. But at the same time, taxpayers may be forced to spend up to $3 billion, according to one report today. A cabinet document has been leaked, which suggests that the project may be 1 year behind and $3 billion over budget. That would make it $9.7 billion.
And let's not forget, David Davis, let's not forget that this road was to replace a road that they cancelled. They already had the money from the federal government at the cost of $1 billion in legal payments on behalf of the poor old Victorian taxpayer. I want to go to an opinion piece you wrote about this.
By now.
Well, absolutely. Election commitment in 2013, I remember it well. Let's go to this opinion piece you wrote in the Herald Sun today about the bill I just discussed then with Stuart Wood. You noted in the legislation that this bill, I find this extraordinary, has avoided the scrutiny of Acts and Regs Committee, Regulations Committee. Now, OK, routine bills may miss the oversight of this committee, but very, very rarely does that happen. Certainly never happens in Canberra. But a bill as radical as this, to avoid debate and to avoid scrutiny and to avoid the Regs Committee, I mean, I find that extraordinary.
Well, it is extraordinary. And the truth of the matter is that parliamentary watchdog is there to protect the rights of Victorian citizens. It's there to make sure that legislation is not passed without the parliament fully understanding what it will do for Victorian citizens. Is it going to strip away their rights and their privileges? That needs to be clear. Now, this is the second piece. The state of emergency legislation was rammed through in 1 week, both houses. This one's been rammed through the lower house, and the SARC committee, the Scrutiny of Acts Committee, that's meant to be the watchdog, did nothing. And that's reprehensible in my view. Its job is to act as a watchdog. And, as I said in the article, it's a watchdog that didn't bark. And, you need to make sure that watchdogs like that are closely looking at rights and privileges. We all accept, as Stuart Wood made clear, that there needs to be special rules and special arrangements at a time of crisis. Everyone accepts that. But that doesn't mean we throw out the legal protections that are, part of 1,000 years of legal tradition. We don't throw those all out.
Yeah, and look, I underscore the point to my viewers. I had 16 years in Canberra, 10 years in the Senate as a staffer. That committee, Regs and Ords, is so powerful. I can't remember an occasion where any bill, including very important terror legislation that needed to be done virtually overnight, I can't remember a time when a bill did not go through that sort of committee, because it is, as David Davis says, our real protection. I've got to ask you too, the Premier admits today he'll be before the inquiry, hotel quarantine inquiry on Friday. Will we get the truth?
Well, we haven't heard the truth from anyone else. We've got this farcical situation where no one's responsible. Mr. Nobody, they're all pointing at each other. Nobody's responsible. They ran this hotel quarantine. No one's responsible. No one knows who ordered it. No one who knows who banned the ADF. No one knows who put in the private security people. No one knows who failed to enforce the rules and the safety and the cleanliness regulations. It's actually like one of your kids. Oh, Mr. Nobody did it. It's farcical, and the Premier ultimately Daniel Andrews is at fault. He's the one who ordered this. He's the one who botched it. He's the one who let the virus escape from quarantine, and he's the one who has failed to fix the quarantine or the contact tracing that has just been a disaster in Victoria. And our economy is being smashed.
Absolutely, David Davis. I've had business call me, every day, day and night about what's happening in Victoria. I will be watching, as I'm sure you will, on Friday. Thank you for your time.
Pleasure.